because everybody said inflation reduction, they admitted it had nothing to do with reducing inflation. It's a con job. I think affordability is the greatest thing. They look at you and they say, affordability. They don't say anything else. Everyone says, oh, their prices were so low. They look at you and they had the worst inflation. We had the highest prices we ever had, and now they're all coming down, including beef is coming down. Beef was up there a little bit. Our ranchers did well. We gotta make them do a little bit less well, perhaps. But the beef is now coming down. Coffee is now coming down. It's all coming down. And it's a beautiful thing to see. But remember this, when they use the word affordability, they just say, they never say anything else. This election's about affordability, and then they go into the next subject. It's a con job. They caused the highest prices in the history of our country, the worst inflation in the history of our country, and we're getting those prices down, and they're coming down rapidly, and you'll see those results very soon. Anybody else want to say a few words? Oh, Ted,
I'm easy to miss.
It's very rare that I would miss you. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, Mr. President, I want to congratulate you on behalf of everyone here for the leadership that you're showing. And this is a victory today for consumers. Well, Mr. President, victory for affordability. Your critics like to say the word affordability. Under Joe Biden and the Democrats, they put mandate after mandate after mandate on cars and trucks, and they drove the price up thousands and thousands of dollars. And with the actions you're taking today, and you put on top of that the one big beautiful bill. You know, most of the senators here on the Senate Commerce Committee, and on the Commerce Committee, we worked together to zero out the CAFE standards. We wrote that into the law that the CAFE standards went to zero. What does that mean? It means you can now, as a consumer, buy the car you want.
All right, good evening, folks. So bear with me. This is my first time doing a quadruple stream. So right now we are what seemingly looks like live on X, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch. So that is exciting. So the reason why I kind of impromptu came on is right here seeing some kind of some sketchy news, but I haven't seen duplicates. Usually I like to see 2, 3, 4 of the same thing before I really start reporting something as a fact or leaning towards the direction of fact. And if this is the first time you viewed my stream, well, this is World Conflict Zone. And typically I do pre-recorded short videos that I release 5 a.m. my time. If there's not enough breaking news, then it may be a little bit later than that. But generally 5 to 6 days a week, I try to do my due diligence in posting War Brief quickies. That's what I call them. And so really it's 2.5 minutes of breaking highlights of war conflict news without getting completely bogged down in any one subject, but it just kind of highlights the big, main, important things that you, the viewer, would be interested in. I just started doing some live again with the hopes of fine-tuning my skills. So bear with me. So, as you see on your screen right here, according to this one person, huge news on Venezuela breaking in the next few minutes. Of course, that was stated 2 hours ago. Apparently, there was a Boeing 767 U.S. Air Force plane flying off the coast of Venezuela. And when I go to look on Flight Radar at this time, I'm not really... I see this one right over here. It's a Boeing 767 from Miami to the port of Spain. No shenanigans. What I will highlight is all day long today, this Habal 787 has been lingering around all day. And it's a high altitude balloon. So thought that was, maybe it's a weather balloon because there is incremental weather going on over here, and kind of in a weird circular fashion, as you can plainly see on the screen. As well as, let's just kind of go through here, try to get updated. Not seeing any shenanigans there. No shenanigans. I am seeing a little bit of lag on my end. Hopefully you're not getting that lag, because lag is not cool. So just so that you have an understanding of what I'm showing you, I have all regular commercial airliners and things like that off. So mainly I have all the cargo planes and then military aircraft that would have their transponders on, lighter than air aircraft, military aircraft, obviously if their transponders are on, which most of the time they are, unless there is something major happening. Now, let's take a look. Pagoda. I don't know what that post is talking about. I mean, I see this one here, and if you look at trajectory, you see this one, you see this one. So unless they were, unless I'm missing it over here, I'm not seeing anything that person is reporting. Maybe the transponder got turned off. Maybe I'm just blind and missing it. But, let me know in the comments below if you know something that I don't. So we're just going to kind of move along here. But the purpose of the stream tonight is, kind of take a look here at the flight radar. Seems to be a lot of whispering going on this evening, so I thought, this might be a good time to get on and see if anything happens to break above and beyond the initial reports. Now I'm going to swing this over. You're going to see it kind of go black. I just don't want to get dinged for something. So actually I can swing this over. I was already prepared for that. So what kind of news what other news do we have here? This is, Knob. I've seen this plane here before. I've seen that. And of course, if you're not aware, President Trump in his conference today from the Oval Office did say that land operations in Venezuela could begin soon. Now, as we all know, there's a lot of soons with Trump. I try to be careful with too much of my personal opinions. I try to just share, hey, this is what we're hearing, this is what's being said, and as long as I have a couple of reliable sources, I feel with good confidence to share that with you. Now, I am waiting on an updated camera system to come in the near future. In the meantime, it will be faceless. It allows me to focus more on graphics and getting more comfortable with doing live streams. So there's that. Now let me click over here. I want to see if no, Nope, not seeing anything with live chat yet. So what do you guys think? As far as the rhetoric from Trump, there's a lot of rhetoric. There's been, a little bit less news lately and more a lot of the same rhetoric, soon, next week, things like that. I'm not seeing any evidence that really anything is changing, whether it's Venezuela or whether it's Ukraine. I think Trump is more interested in negotiating financial deals. I don't really think he's that interested in the war. I really don't. I think he's more concerned with the Western Hemisphere, and I think that there's some leverage going on a back end, because a lot of people are like, over the last week, they don't understand why Trump has changed course. And I don't really think it's him changing course. I think it's based on information that we're not aware of yet. And what I mean by that is, just as it sounds actually, that, there's been a lot of corruption and things coming out of Ukraine here lately. And we all know that Trump is more interested in selling weapons to those that want to purchase it than necessarily getting involved in the war himself. And when I say himself, meaning pulling the trigger. But, because he keeps talking about how many, peace deals he's made. But part of me feels like there's a little bit of backing off too, not just because of the corruption, but I think some of it too is the backing off because, Russia and China are like, we'll back off of Venezuela, okay, if you back off of Taiwan and Ukraine. And I do wonder how much of that is playing a factor into things. Because, when Trump got elected, if you're not already aware of this, MAGA supporters really just want to focus on America and America's regional interest, if you will. And so, I think one of the things that he struggles with is getting too involved in things unless there's an immediate nuclear threat. I think that's where his red line is. Unless there's kind of like the Somalia stuff, Sudanese, things of that nature. So anyways, enough of my blabbing. Let's look at some real news here to see. So, who gave NATO the right to kill Gaddafi? It must have been upsetting for Putin to watch the Libyan tyrant being pulled out of a culvert and ripped to pieces by people he abused 42 years ago. So this is just some rhetoric, So 34 minutes ago, it's been reported that a Boeing 767 U.S. Air Force plane has turned off its transponder after having it on for a very short period of time off of the coast of Venezuela. It sounds more like some type of reconnaissance plane to me, because that's not uncommon to see some of that stuff. So I wouldn't get too excited. I'm not really seeing anything major right now off of Flight 24. And yeah, I could probably... Yeah, there's not a lot going on here. There really isn't, folks. But it's a good test for me to get on here and try to, because I was seeing things that led me to believe that it might be worth getting on, but let's see here, folks. I will say in the battle for Pokrovsk that regardless of how many Russian soldiers have been lost trying to capture that territory, um, pretty much at this point, most of the areas, to the east of Pokrovsk, and I wish I could show you this, but I don't know if I get dinged for it or not. But basically, you know, they've come from the south, meaning Russian soldiers, and they've probably taken at this point everything for the most part south of the main. Pretty much, if you think of just a typical center of. Here, let me try to do this. No, I don't want to do that. I need to be careful here. But basically, it's looking like Russia is going to take more territory. And I see a lot of public press getting into, how many losses, and it's a war. Putin don't care about that. He cares about the objective, not how many deaths it's taking to accomplish something. So to me, it's just kind of, what I can do is this. Bear with me here. The heck? Oh no, that's weird. I'll have to figure that out. Oh, maybe it's. No, it's not that. At any rate, here, what I'll do is I'll just kind of read this off and let me know what you think in the comments below. Um, Basically, Pokrovsk is for the most part where the railway kind of splits into the middle part of the city, and then it do tracks east, of course, and west, but we're talking more east, and then kind of branches off in two ways, one kind of going north and the other kind of going southeast. And essentially, what the Russians are trying to do is they're coming up from the north, okay, and trickling down south, and they're essentially trying to encircle the area to cut that railway off. And they're probably about 30 miles. I don't know, maybe less than that from actually accomplishing that. And then in the city of Pokrovsk itself, pretty much the mid part where the railway goes through the middle of the city, or what we would call the downtown, if you will, or Main Street. It appears right now that there's only a couple of Ukrainian pockets north of that. So it looks very much like that they're probably going to capture Pokrovsk probably in the very, very near future. It's not looking good here for the Ukrainians. And this is an important city. I actually have a video on it on YouTube concerning why it's so important. And it provides a lot of details. So if you haven't watched that, be sure to go and check that out. As well as All right, let's take a look here. Let me just get it off the screen for a second. They're saying that phase 2 of the Gaza deal is progressing and it'll happen soon. That's per War Monitor posting on X. Trying to find a map here. I just wasn't prepared simply because I didn't have an agenda based on some of the things that I was seeing. So, there was an F-16 from the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds that crashed in California today. The pilot did eject safely. The popular online game Roblox has been officially banned in Russia. Interesting. Malaysia's Ministry of Transport has announced after more than 10 years it will resume the search for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Holy crap. That's interesting. See if they can ever find that doggone thing. Let's see here. This is a nice little graphic for you guys to see. I want you to look at this. So this is a graphic showing you all of the naval fleets from the United States and what is currently in the Caribbean. So that's a pretty good little graphic there. And according to this post, the U.S. Navy has positioned a strong naval group across the Southern Caribbean as part of its ongoing regional operations. The formation includes a mix of guided missile destroyers, support vessels, and patrol assets that are maintaining a steady presence in the area. Their mission focuses on maritime security, surveillance, and rapid response to any developing situation. This deployment highlights Washington's commitment to stability in the region and reinforces the Navy's ability to project power and maintain control of key sea routes in the Caribbean Sea. And I think the graphic speaks for itself. Don't need to read it off to you as far as all the warships. Quite a bit there. Just learned something new, folks. Cool. Let's see what else is going on here. Ukraine continues to insist it will not give up territories in a peace deal, mainly due to it losing key defensive lines to repel future attacks. All right, let's see here. Credit Bank of Moscow, the sixth largest bank in Russia by asset size, with a lot of rubles, has almost 700 billion rubles in overdue loans, which is 12.3% of its assets. And for something to compare to, when the Washington Mutual collapsed in 2008, non-performing loans were at 3.8% of assets. So this is per the Institute of the Study of War. Putin attempted to preemptively deflect blame onto Europe for Russia's rejection of any peace plan iterations ahead of December 2nd U.S.-Russian meeting. High-ranking Kremlin officials repeatedly indicated in recent weeks that the Kremlin was not going to accept any peace agreement that did not meet Russia's Marxist demands, including the U.S. proposed original 28-point peace plan. The Kremlin is likely setting conditions to blame Europe's insertion of non-starters into any peace plan as the reason for Russia's rejection, essentially using Europe as a scapegoat for Russia's own obstruction of the peace process. Putin threatened Europe to prevent Europe from engaging in the peace process. Kremlin threats against Europe likely aim to deter Europe's involvement into the peace process, as well as undermine the strengthening of Europe's defenses out of fear of allegedly provoking Russian aggression. I will say that I did see, coming back over to the map here on Flight Radar, is I was seeing a lot of, see if they're still in the air, because they've been patrolling all day. Yeah, so like right here, you can see I'm not going to say that name. I don't want to get, flagged for something that is misunderstood. But you see right here, and then so it's a military aircraft coming from, from Bogota. It's raining. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Nothing. Nothing. People have ordered some Amazon. This is the one that I was looking at earlier today. Well, folks, I'm sorry if it's boring, but I'm not seeing a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and jump to my home page on X. And we're just going to kind of watch.
Which nobody thought would be possible in 4 years. We did it in 10 months. That's not.
Xavier made dinner, so.
Hey,
Hey, go get Charlie.
I got food, folks. I got a chicken burger, some imitation mac and cheese. So I'm just going to try to play this Trump conference from earlier in case you missed it. And I'll try to get to the questions and stuff.
Drug dealers
Yeah,
at the
there we
highest
go.
level. What comes out of that? To record anybody in the army. We're getting high quality people, amazing people.
Ah,
Wanting to be in the military. They have spirit now. Call it what you want, but that's part of it. But they have great spirit now. It's a great thing. Go ahead, ask your second question.
Okay, my second question, I've got a lot of close family.
so I'm going to take myself off of mic. I'll just let this play. At the very least, you can kind of hear it, as well as we do have the flight radar. And I'm going to eat, and then I'll take a look at some news, and then I'll return once this conference is over.
They're losing thousands of dollars and gotta go chase down these manufacturers. What can we do to track down these manufacturers of this illegal computer chip that's really hurting automotive
Have
industry?
you heard about this?
Yes, sir, we get built in China, and most of them are coming out of Great Britain, sir. They're being distributed through China, through distributors selling them online through Great Britain, yes, sir.
That's not so good. What do you
Being
know?
distributed through China,
Bernie, do you know?
selling them online.
It works on older vehicles, and obviously we have to do a better job.
Yeah, I think that's something I've never heard
It's,
of.
it
Very
works on older
good. We never heard of it. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, you released video of that first boat strike on
We never
September
heard of it.
2nd,
That's
but
pretty
not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what
I don't
happened?
know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. You know, we stopped, every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And
Thank you.
if you look at our, numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%. You look at our, I'm surprised it was 9%, you want to, I don't know who's doing the 9%, but it's down 91, and we're gonna start very soon on land, and I'm sure you're thrilled to hear that.
And on Ukraine, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there last night with Vladimir Putin. Can you give us an update about those talks? It sounds from what the Kremlin is saying that they're not going to compromise. Can you tell us what you've...
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're gonna find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. It's, you know, when I was in this office and I talked about no cards, I said, you have no cards. That was the time to settle. I thought that would have been a much better time to settle. But they, in their wisdom, decided not to do that. They have a lot of things against them right now. But you
was 57%. We moved it 6 points, which nobody thought would be possible in 4 years. We did it in 10 months. That's something that maybe the news should cover a little bit more. And we've driven down the price of automobiles. The car prices for consumers are down before you did
Just
this.
about everything is down. You know, this whole thing is, they use the word affordability. It's a Democrat hoax. They're the ones that drove the prices up. And all they do is say, affordability, and you're supposed to say, oh, that means they had low prices. No, we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but let's say that's history. I don't believe that. Biden had, because of his stupid ways and between his energy policies and his spending policies, we had the worst inflation in the history of our country. And now our prices are coming down, and they're coming down for cars, and they're coming down. I mean, did you hear yesterday when Chris Wright from Energy, the head of energy in our country, said there are now parts of our country, it's all happening, $1.99 for gasoline, a gallon. And we have it at $2.50, $2.60. It was at $5. And that's bigger than any tax cut we could give. For the average family, that's considered bigger than any tax cut. So the word affordability, when they mention it, you ever watch them? It's all about, I saw the young lady that lost last night. She lost by a lot more than they thought. And we have a great new candidate in Congress. Really great, Matt Van Epps. But I saw last night, she said, it's all about affordability, all about, they never talked about like really specifics. Everything was through the roof. Eggs, when I took over, eggs were 4 times higher than they ever were. We got the prices down to the lowest level.
Yep.
I mean, amazing. But eggs were 4 times never, you gotta watch, they're great con people. It's like the Inflation Reduction Act. And after they got it approved, because everybody said Inflation Reduction, they admitted it had nothing to do with reducing inflation. It's a con job. I think affordability is the greatest thing. They look at you and they say, affordability. It's a con job. They don't say anything else. Everyone says, oh, their prices were so low. They look at you and they had the worst inflation. We had the highest prices we ever had. And now they're all coming down, including beef is coming down. Beef was up there a little bit. Our ranchers did well. We gotta make them do a little bit less well, perhaps. But the beef is now coming down. Coffee is now coming down. It's all coming down. And it's a beautiful thing to see. But remember this, when they use the word affordability, they just say, they never say anything else. This election's about affordability, and then they go into the next subject. It's a con job. They caused the highest prices in the history of our country, the worst inflation in the history of our country, and we're getting those prices down, and they're coming down rapidly, and you'll see those results very soon. Anybody else want to say a few words? Oh, Ted,
I'm easy to miss.
It's very rare that I would miss that. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, Mr. President, I want to congratulate you on behalf of everyone here for the leadership that you're showing. And this is a victory today for consumers. Well, Mr. President, victory for affordability. Your critics like to say the word affordability. Under Joe Biden and the Democrats, they put mandate after mandate after mandate on cars and trucks, and they drove the price up thousands and thousands of dollars. And with the actions you're taking today, and you put on top of that the one big beautiful bill, you know, most of the senators here on the Senate Commerce Committee, and on the Commerce Committee, we worked together to zero out the CAFE standards. We wrote that into law that the CAFE standards went to zero. What does that mean? It means you can now, as a consumer, buy the car you want. It also means people's lives will be safer, because what these regulations did is they forced cars to be more expensive and made of plastic instead of steel, because you had to make them lighter to comply with these standards, so you'd get in a wreck and people would die. The result of what you're doing, you're literally saving people's lives, and you're making it where families can afford to get a new car. These actions will drop the cost of cars and trucks thousands of dollars. That makes a real difference. And I'll make one final point. You know, about half the members here are car dealers. And I will say my good friend Roger Williams out in the lobby, he tried to sell me a car, which didn't surprise me, but I just want to give props to Mike Kelly. He showed he was savvier because he tried to sell you a car, and you can afford a much nicer car than I can. So well done, Mike Roger. You just went to the wrong customer.
That was $100 cheaper.
So well done, Mike Roger. You just went to the wrong customer.
That was $100 cheaper.
And people plastic was plastic. In the Noro accident, it broke up and people were shattered because of that crazy deal. Like that. It's a really good point.
And Mr. President, I'll tell you, the Senate Commerce Committee on January 14th, we're going to have a hearing with all of the big three there and Tesla, and the entire hearing is going to focus on how your leadership has reduced the burdens on car makers, that's lowering costs, that's giving consumers more choices, and it's producing more jobs in America. And it's highlighting that's a real record of success. Lowering costs, that's giving consumers more choices.
You know, they were going by California. We had like two different countries, California and 15 that followed California, because you had 15 states follow California. And the rules from California were just like everything else. That's why people are leaving. That's why it's such a mess. It's got such, there's a state with such unbelievable potential. But what they did with the car industry is incredible. And that was, you know, the car companies didn't know what to do because they had two standards and you can't build two different cars for the same country. And what we're doing today is very big. Would anybody like to say something? Would you like to say something, cars for the same country?
Thank you.
Brian, hold it. And we love you, Brian.
I've always said,
Go ahead.
I've always said you tackle the three M's: mortgage, munchkins, and marriage. Solidified all of those. I'll add motor vehicles to that now. My question, I got one about consumer confidence. We just came off with a record high Black Friday, up 9%.
Record high, highest ever, biggest amount ever purchased in one day. You know?
Which I think counters this narrative of affordability, because apparently the Americans are spending money. So I want to see, how do you view that for consumer confidence being so high going into Christmas and going into next year? And I do have one for the auto group.
Yeah, I just think that we have tremendous confidence in the country. You know, one of the things in terms of confidence, if you go back a year and a half, it's amazing, we're like into 10 months already, but you go back a little bit before the election, because after November 5th, it started changing rapidly, even though we weren't running it until January. But when you look back and you look at the enlistment of soldiers, people that wanted to join the military, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, people that wanted to, Coast Guard, it's like booming, it's all, Space Force. But we had the worst recruitment in the history of our Space Force. But we had, a year later, we have the greatest recruitment in the history. You can't even get in. Getting in is like getting into a top college that you couldn't get in. People want to be in the service now, and that includes the police and firemen and other things. You couldn't hire police, you couldn't hire anybody in the Army or the Navy. You couldn't get people in. And we now have gone from that to record recruitment. We're getting high quality people, amazing people, wanting to be in the military. They have spirit now. You know, call it what you want, but that's part of it. But they have great spirit now. It's a great thing. Go ahead, ask your second question.
Okay, my second question, I've got a lot of close family friends in the automotive business, own dealerships all across Southern California.
Go ahead, ask your
They sent me a question to ask you. There's a thing called a mileage blocker that is installed on vehicles. It's a type of computer chip which alters the actual mileage driven on the vehicle, so that when you have a leased vehicle that's turned in, they're losing thousands of dollars and got to go chase down these manufacturers. What can we do to track down these manufacturers of this illegal computer chip that's really hurting automotive
Have
industry?
you heard about this?
We, sir, we didn't build in China, and most of them are coming out of Great Britain, sir. They're being distributed through China, through distributors selling them online through Great Britain, yes, sir.
That's not so good. What do you
Being
know?
distributed through China,
You Bernie, do you know?
selling them online.
It works on older vehicles, and obviously, we haven't done a good job.
Yeah, I think this is something I've never heard of.
It works on older vehicles.
We never heard of it. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, you released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what
I don't
happened?
know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. You know, we stopped, every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And
Thank you.
if you